Okay, I'm hoping this is getting picked up clearly. Today we're going to talk about in preparation for a ride in the Alps, specifically for Indian riders. The biggest issue that we all have is traveling around the world, getting visas and all that. And Schengen visa is something that gives you access to, if I remember right, 28 odd countries, all of the EU, and free travel between those countries. Now, unlike the US visa, which is given for an extended period of time in most cases, I mean, the lowest that I've heard of is a 1-year US entry visa. My uncle, who was in the aeronautics field, used to always get a 1-year visa. But most often, I've only heard of people getting a 5-year or 10-year US visa. Now, that's not the case with the Schengen visa. Schengen visas are, what can I say? Only granted for a short duration, and it is specific to that particular trip that's being made. So whether you're going on work, or you're going on tourism, or you're going for studies, or you're going to apply for a long-term Schengen visa, it's specific for that. Now, in our case, what we're going to be doing is applying for a tourist visa. Now, a couple of things have happened in terms of tourist visas in the last year or so. The first is there were many rules and regulations, pretty standard across the Schengen countries, but in some cases different. Like, Germany had free entry for a period. Spain was closed for a large part of time. Likewise, Austria or Czech Republic was one of the last to, Czechia as you call it, was one of the last to open up, etc. That was one thing that happened with the pandemic. The second thing that happened with the pandemic is consulates downsized their staff, because for almost 2 years there was no need for that staffing. Nobody was getting visas, nobody was traveling to the Schengen countries. Now, as a result of that, most consulates were understaffed. And the third thing that has really changed the dynamics of a application and receipt of a Schengen visa has been the fact that rebound travel has been unprecedented. And the sheer volume of applications for the Schengen visa are around the world are just staggering. So as a result, most countries are having a tough time issuing visas on time. Now, the impact of that is manifold for us because of a few reasons. One is the weaker applications are being rejected immediately. They don't want to waste time on analyzing and all of that, so the weaker applications are being rejected immediately. The second is, with the crises in Ukraine And prior to that, the sheer number of refugees that were entering Europe has increased. So there's far more, what can I say, it's under a fine-tooth comb that they're evaluating your visa application. Now, there are a couple of things that you can remember when you're applying for a visa. The first is that you need to be as truthful as possible. I'll qualify a little later, but you need to be truthful in terms of your purpose of stay, finances that are available to you, and indicate the intent to return back to your home country. These are the primary three elements that govern the decision making in terms of an issue of a visa, not just a Schengen visa, pretty much any country's visa. They want to be sure that you're going to be returning to your home country. They want to make sure that you will not live off the government, so therefore you need to have enough funds to support your stay. And they want to make sure that you do only the things that you should be doing when you're in that country. So you should not be working if you are on a tourist visa. Right now, having said that, it's come down to the Schengen countries and application for the Schengen visa. As I mentioned earlier, there's unprecedented demand, and backlogs at every consulate is like immense. So the biggest problem that you're going to be finding out is getting a visa appointment, because we have to apply for a Schengen visa through one of their mandated partners. VFS in India and many parts of the world. I think Spain works with a company called BLC or BLS or something like that. You've got to work through their partner to check the documentation and send the administratively follow up and send the file across to the consulate. Make sure that most visa applications are fair and have the necessary information that they require. Now, getting an appointment at VFS is extremely challenging for most countries. So whether you're applying for a Norwegian visa or a French visa or an Italian visa or Spain visa, getting an appointment at this point of time is very, very difficult. So one of the first recommendations I have is look for appointments in nearby cities. For instance, I am a resident of Bangalore, but I applied in Chennai. I traveled to Chennai so that I could complete my visa appointment, because I had appointment slots in Chennai, not in Bangalore. Now, in terms of making your intentions clear, that was the first point I mentioned. You need to, there are three rules that govern which country's visa you should be applying for. The first, and possibly the most important, is your primary purpose of visit. If you're attending a conference in Germany, and that's your primary purpose of visit, you should be applying for a German visa, a Schengen visa from Germany. If you're in tourism and you want to go to multiple countries in the Schengen area, you then go on to point number 2 of which is your country of maximum stay. So typically they calculate room nights, so the number of nights that you're spending at that particular country. And for instance, taking an example of the same German trip, you go to Germany for the conference. It's a 3-day conference. You land on day 0, so makes it 4 nights that you're spending in Germany. And then you say, hey, you know what, I'm in Germany. I want to go over to Paris and then explore southern France, let's say, right? So you're going to spend another 2 days or 3 days in Paris, and you're going to spend another 2-3 days in the south of France, which means that you're spending, in your 10-day trip, you're spending 4 nights in Germany and 6 nights in France. For this reason, they will expect you to have applied for a French visa because your maximum amount of stay is in France. Now let's change that itinerary a bit. Let's say you were 4 nights in Germany and then you decided not to do the south of France and you just wanted to do Paris, and you decided to spend 4 nights in Paris. In this case, the third rule applies, wherein you're spending an equal number of nights in 2 separate countries. So there, the rule of first port of entry applies. So you apply for the visa at the country wherein you enter the Schengen area first. If you were flying into Frankfurt and then carrying on with your trip, you would apply for a German visa. On the other hand, if you were flying Air France to Paris and then transiting to a German conference destination, you would need to apply for a French visa. I hope that's clear. So those are the 3 rules that govern which country you apply the visa from. Okay, I'm not going to repeat information that's freely available online, both on YouTube videos as well as in websites of the consulates and other blogs, etc. So I'm not going to talk about how much money is required, etc., etc. What I would close this video with is, hang on, got some traffic. What I'd close this video with is your covering letter. Now, many people, following the advice of their many travel agents they work with, just write a very perfunctory covering letter. This is who I am, this is where I'm traveling to, and please give me a multiple entry Schengen visa. I would recommend, on the other hand, to make your covering letter as comprehensive as possible, and imagine that you're having a live interview with the visa officer and cover all the questions that he or she would ask you, and go back to the original 3 points that I said that you need to cover, right? Cover those in your covering letter. Cover the answers to those in your covering letter, which is financial means, intent to leave, and primary purpose of visit. Explain that in detail. Add documentation about your previous travel history if you've got any, whether it is to the Schengen regions or not. Like, for instance, in my case, I've traveled to the Schengen regions maybe about 10, 12 times. I did take Xeroxes of every visa. I copied them, put them onto one document, copied them, and added that on. Now, they have that information, it's on their fingertips, but it showcased, in my opinion, it showcased my intent to tell them that I'm a pretty widely traveled guy, and here you go, You guys have issued me visa 10 times in the past, so go right ahead and issue me visa. I had another thing that I covered in my covering letter, and I'm going to attach a screenshot of that covering letter shortly. I covered the fact that I'm doing a bike tour across Europe. I'm going to be covering 5,000, 6,000 kilometers. But I also have Croatia in my itinerary. Now, Croatia is outside the Schengen countries, which means that when I leave the Schengen area and go into Croatia, I'm coming back. In a day or two, I'm going to be back in the Schengen area. That means that that's going to be my second entry. So I necessarily needed to get a multiple entry visa for my trip to be planned to go ahead the way it was supposed to go ahead. So those are a few things that you need to consider. Make a strong covering letter, make your intent clear, and good luck for applying for a Schengen visa. If you do find this video useful, do like and subscribe, share, and pose any questions that you have in the comments below. Cheers.